Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Founder Hour podcast.
And this podcast is brought to you by Outer. Outer makes the world's most beautiful, comfortable, innovative, and high-quality outdoor furniture, all from sustainable materials, and is the only outdoor furniture with a patented built-in cover to make protecting it effortless. From teak chairs to fire pit tables, everything Outer makes has the look and feel of what you'd expect at a five-star resort for less than you'd pay at a big box store for something that won't last.
Pat, and you know how much I love five-star resorts.
Oh yeah, I do.
And as you know, Pat and I spend a lot of time outdoors, and we love hanging out on our outer couches. We're certain you'll love it too. For a limited time, get 10% off and free shipping at liveouter.com. This is Outer's best offer anywhere.
Anywhere.
Only available to the Founder Hour listeners. Get 10% off and free shipping at live, O-U-T-E-R. Let me say that again for all you alphabet geeks. Live, OUTER.com/the Founder Hour. That's liveouter.com/the Founder Hour. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's get into the episode. Our guest today is Ellen Latham. Ellen is a highly trained physiologist with a lifelong passion for health and fitness. Her desire to be on the cutting edge of fitness inspired her to design the ultimate workout, which became the foundation for Orangetheory Fitness, which she founded with her partners in 2010. Since then, Orangetheory, known for its coach-led group classes featuring heart rate monitors, has surpassed $1 billion in sales with over 1,500 studios and counting worldwide. It was named the fastest-growing woman-owned business in 2017 and one of the fastest-growing franchise companies in history. Here we go.
Ellen, we like to kind of, warm things up, and I know that's a, exercise terminology, an easy one, so I'm just going to hand that off to the audience about who you are and your earlier days. So give us a quick background on where Ellen Latham was born.
I was born in Niagara Falls, New York, and I lived there till about 22, from a very large Italian family. My father was the youngest of 8 brothers and sisters from an Italian immigrant family. And we probably had about 140 relatives just in the city of Niagara Falls. Always had a cousin in class or a teacher. There was someone that was a relative. So it was a big, wonderful Italian family. And my father was the youngest. And my father was a phys ed teacher and football coach at the local high school. So he was it's kind of out of one of those Lifetime TV movies. He was kind of the coach, and the game on the weekend was the big game that the whole city went to. And so he was kind of, the important guy in town.
I've heard that the New York side of Niagara Falls isn't the pretty side of Niagara Falls. Is that true?
Well, now it's the natural side of Niagara Falls. Okay, it's the organic side. But listen, when I grew up, in the 60s, 70s, phenomenal city. Was a great place to grow up. A lot of culture, diverse. It just was wonderful in that way. Unfortunately, as of recently, it struggles because it was a factory city. DuPont, Carborundum, Nabisco, they all closed down. So people left. That's why I left in my 20s. Typically, generations before me, you lived there, married someone, had kids, and died there. And that's kind of how it was in that city, generations. But what happened in mine was there weren't jobs and people had to leave. So it's a very different city, right now. Although it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me was to kind of go and flap my wings coming to Florida.
Yeah. What kind of kid would you say you were when you were growing up? What kind of things were you into?
So, when I was growing up, there wasn't the girls' athletics like there is today. In the school system, Title IX actually happened while I was, going to school. So I did the cheerleading and whatever, level of athletics you can do with that. I played intramural softball, and then I got on a traveling softball team when I was probably 12, 13, and I really took to that. What kind of kid was I? I probably was a very, very disciplined, obedient child. There were four of us, and out of the four of us, I definitely was the one who got in trouble the least. I just kind of am one who kind of, stayed within the lines. My father was this bigger than life man. I don't know if it's, I have brothers. So as a female, it's a little different. Here's this icon man as my father. And, my first love, of course, is a daughter to her father. And it was just, I wanted to, do and be the best for him. And a matter of fact, when it came to going to college, I told him, I want to do what you're doing. So I went and got a phys ed degree, which is exactly what he had, a phys ed degree. And I was going to become a phys ed teacher, and that was going to be great and fabulous. And I ended up staying on to get my master's in exercise physiology. Didn't really end up teaching school.
So, I assume this was what, like 30, 40 years ago, Ellen? Like what's the kind of time frame of when you went to college?
Okay, well, we're probably talking, I graduated in 1975. So talk about 4 or 6 years of college after that.
Ellen, if you could set the stage for us a little bit about what the physical education, physical exercise space was like in the mid 70s, early 80s. We obviously know what it looks like today. We know about all the different concepts around the globe. And we'll get to that later in the episode, but just kind of set the scene for us.
Yeah, well, for women, it was all about aerobics. It was a Jane Fonda leg warmer period of time, and Judy Shepard was doing the jazzercise, so it was dance aerobics, and we were all going to conferences and learning all kinds of choreographed routines. There'd sometimes be 500 women, all of us instructors at conferences learning, dance aerobic routines to bring back to our facilities. So that was what fitness was about. Now, I worked in a YMCA, and there was weight training, and the guys were doing a lot of weight training. So I started actually lifting weights with the guys because I worked in the Y with them, and I was the only woman in the weight room. In the 70s and 80s, you weren't seeing women lifting weights, or you didn't see them in the weight room. I did because these guys were my friends, and we'd go lift together. And then, of course, I loved the results from lifting. So I, kind of got introduced to that. But basically, fitness was about running. It was about dance aerobics. Guys were lifting weights, playing racquetball. That was what was going on at that time.
Mm-hmm. I want to kind of talk a little bit about your father. You mentioned him a couple times. I know he played a big role in your life throughout the years, and I know we'll get into that too. But I want to kind of talk about a little bit about his background and how he sort of fell into being like a football coach and physical education, teacher. What was his kind of, lifestyle like? Where did he come from?
Yeah. So my father was the youngest of 8 children from an Italian immigrant family. And he was actually drafted by the Toronto Argonauts in 1940 to play professional football. But instead, he accepted a full college scholarship at Canisius College in Buffalo so he could get a college education. He would be the only child of 8 children from this Italian immigrant family to get a college education. And he just took advantage of that and thought that was important. And so he went to Canisius and played ball. Then he went to UB, and he actually held the punting record in college at averaging 47.5 yards. I'm going to keep his memory alive out here. He was a punter. And so he became a phys ed teacher and football coach at the local high school in Niagara Falls. And he was just this guy, I talk about that he lived by this momentum shift up theory. So there's sports psychologists call this theory momentum shift. And you can momentum shift up or you can momentum shift down. So sports psychologists, and my father would talk to me about this and lived by this, would tell their coaches, when your team's not performing like they should be, when your players aren't performing like they should be, instead of yelling at them and keep talking about what they didn't do well, sure, you mention and go over those things, but then emphasize what they do well. Emphasize why they're on that team and the successes you have seen with them. He was just really so special in the sense of living by this momentum shift up theory. I often say he didn't parent my sister and two brothers and myself. He coached us. And this was something that I knew from an early age in regard to this thinking, because it is a way of thinking to focus on what you have instead of what you don't have. And in our society, we tend to do the opposite, don't we? Wake up in the morning, what isn't going well? What could I be doing better? Instead of sitting there in gratitude of what's going well. He just was that man. So I was very fortunate to be surrounded by that. Many of his players, I mean, when he passed away, I can't even tell you the decades of players that came out and came up to me and gave me stories of how this man helped get a college scholarship and they would never be able to afford to go to college, how he always believed in them, just really special things. So I was very fortunate.
Did you know what you wanted to do with your physical education degree, or was it just something you were passionate about and you figured that you'd figure something out later?
I did. I figured that I would teach school, but when I got that degree, that was when there were 5 million teachers and there were no jobs. So it was impossible for me to get work. I was subbing and doing this, and what happened was a job opened up at the YMCA, a full-time fitness director job. I applied for it, and that's how I kind of fell into the fitness industry and kind of stayed there. I ended up working as a fitness director, became the first female director of a YMCA that actually had men residents up on the top floor, which was a whole story in itself. And that was like just this wonderful kind of experience. I love the challenge of things, but no matter how I wanted to grow and maybe direct a facility or, be the manager of a facility, I would always tell the owners or whoever, with my supervisors, I've got to be able to constantly coach classes. That is something I don't want to stop doing. I love that. I'm not built to sit in a room at a desk and manage this fitness facility. I'll do that, but I have to be able to teach coach classes as well.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you at the YMCA and then what came after that?
So I was at the YMCA for maybe about 5 years, and my sister lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida with her husband, and me and my husband at that time, we moved here and we didn't have jobs, and we just kind of felt like, let's give this a shot. I'll never forget having a conversation with my sister and basically saying, give me the 5 top fitness facilities in Fort Lauderdale. What are the 5 everyone's talking about? Where are they? As soon as I landed here, I went, introduced myself at those places. I started teaching classes for as little as $15 an hour. It didn't matter. Some of those places I had to drive 45 minutes to get to. Didn't matter. I needed to work in the best places.
And were these more like kind of individual studios? Like at the time, was LA Fitness or 24 Hour Fitness or some of these Bali Total Fitness and some of these places, around? Were they as like prevalent as they are today?
There were some of those, but that is not where I went. They weren't the top 5 places. The top 5 places were these unique studio concepts, even back there, that they were doing aerobics with the heavy hands and jumping up and down and doing all kinds of aerobic type classes and packing these women in. And that's what I did. I taught there for probably about 6 months. And then I found out there were these things called fitness spas here in Florida. So I went and I applied for a job at what was called Bonaventure Spa. Now, these spas were where the movie stars came. So they came from California for a week to maybe dry out a little, whatever, but they came to get fit. They took classes all day. They did their facials, massages. They ate. They were put on a food program. I mean, it was one of those. And I said, whoa, this is the best, very high end, and top-notch people. And so I got a job there as an exercise physiologist because I had a master's in exercise phys, which worked so well for me, which a lot of fitness people didn't have at that time. So they hired me as that. And that was really where I was on my way of wanting to work high end work, like for people who are really interested in great fitness and were willing to come in and be a part of it and pay for it. And I love that because I gave them all my knowledge in fitness, and I absolutely thought that I had the best fitness job in the world.
And did you feel like at this point in your life that this was a career that you were comfortable with, that you would pursue for perhaps the rest of your life?
Absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind. I thought that there was, potential for me. I'll never forget when I sat in the interview with the spa director of that very high-end spa, and she said, well, where would you like to be in a, couple years and this and that? And I said, I'd like to be in your seat. I don't know if they went over real well because she didn't smile, but I ended up leaving there in about 3 years because I got offered at an even more prestigious spa in North Miami Beach, Florida, the exercise physiologist position, which then turned into the spa director position. So it all worked out.
And these are like the pre-equinox days, right? Where like there weren't necessarily all of these brand name nice like club type facilities with your spas and your Pilates and your classes and your workouts. Like this was like what now we're talking 80s, 90s?
Yeah, 90s. Yeah. So this was, I mean, they certainly weren't in Niagara Falls, New York. So this was, I'll never forget calling home to my mother and saying, I don't know, I'm pulling up on this property and there's these giant fountains and I'm very excited to work here.
Do you have like one like profound memory from that time? Maybe it was like someone that was in your class that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe like this, high profile person or celebrities in here, or just like a run in with someone or something that you can remember?
Oh yeah. There was like Linda Evans would come. That was when Dynasty was big. A lot of the soap opera stars, I did a boot camp where, the soap opera stars would come down and I put them through a week workout. Matt Damon was in my Pilates class. I did private Pilates with James Caan. Yeah. Here in Florida, I got exposed to some neat stuff.
Yeah. So you're working at these spas, and then I think around like the age of 40, things kind of took a turn, where you were fired from your job and sort of were a single mother and had to figure it out. So tell us a little bit about that time in your life, and I guess what kind of was going through your head in terms of what do I do next? Yeah,
I had been now at this new spa for a while, and it was just a great job because I like I say, I was doing these celebrity boot camps. I was writing a fitness column in the Miami Herald. I was doing fitness tips on Channel 7 Fox News here in Miami. I mean, it really, I built this nice like persona, and I was working for a private spa with private owners, and I had brought spinning to Florida. This was before no one had spinning. So I met Johnny G at a convention. He was sitting in the corner. He, created spinning, Johnny G. And I met him with a couple bikes. He's telling me about this program. He put me through a little workout. I came back and I talked my owners into buying 10 of these bikes. Well, we put them in the spa and it just exploded. We were on every magazine, newspaper, TV station for this new workout that existed. And then quite honestly, what ended up happening is I'd been there a little bit, and I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I wanted to open up a little spinning concession. My new owners weren't that thrilled with that idea. And so they felt we needed to part ways because they, and I understand to a point, but at that time, I was just pushing and moving and, just constantly creating. And it worked for the best, obviously, because that would have been limiting to me. But I was devastated when they basically pulled me in and said, you know what? You want to do other things? We're going to part ways. A 9-year-old son, income stopped right there, got up the next morning and decided I only had a few options. My father was alive then, and basically that momentum shift up theory proved to really work for me at that time. Focus on what you have, not what you don't have. Well, I had a Pilates certification. I did open up that little spinning concession, and I started doing Pilates out of a spare room in my home next to my son's bedroom. And I built this at-home Pilates program crazy. From 6 a.m. in the morning sometimes to 9 p.m. at night, I had two women pulling in my driveway, two women pulling out of my driveway in their exercise outfits. I often joke and say I have no idea what the neighbors thought, what kind of job or work I had going on in that house. But
Yeah.
it was a great thing, which led me to borrow a little money and open up an 1,100 square foot Pilates studio.
You know what's interesting? It's, I think some people have this entrepreneurial nature in them that maybe they don't figure out until later in life, or something has to happen where you might be working somewhere and things don't quite work out. And obviously you could be like just a bad employee, not show up to work. That's one way of getting fired. But when you're like, you have this vision and you try to push and you try to like innovate and you try to take things to a different direction, and that's not quite like aligned with whoever you're working for, their vision, then that's like, that's not necessarily a reason to be down on yourself, right? About like having to part ways because you're kind of restricted, right? As an employee at someone's company. Did you ever, up until that point, feel like eventually you would want to just have your own business, have your own thing? And was that something you were working towards? Or did it just happen after? Yeah.
What's funny is no. The answer is really no. I thought this was great. If I could have like explored some other things and that would let me feel like I'm still flapping my wings and I'm still in the creative mode, I'm really good as a visionary in fitness. So if I could have done that, I would have kept that job forever. But like you say, that's not going to work for maybe some owners. Maybe it would for some, but it didn't for them. And it wasn't until I went out there and I started very slow. Mind you, I started in a spare room in my house. So that's very slow. And started to have belief in myself of, wait a minute, I know a lot. And people kind of like what I offer them. And I started getting my footing slowly. This wasn't like boom, slowly. And then opened up that 1,100 square foot studio. It went really well. Now I'm more confident. Now I'm believing in myself even more so. I'm having that attitude of, I think I can do this.
Yeah. Was there anywhere or anybody you learned from like this kind of concept of building a scalable business at the time? Because, when it comes to being like, let's say a personal trainer or like a coach or something like that, it's really hard to scale yourself, right? Like you have your own finite amount of time in a day. You could only see, if you're doing one-on-one coaching, one-on-one training, you can only see so many people in one day. And at some point, the math, based on the input versus output, just like doesn't necessarily make sense unless you start doing like group trainings and group, and obviously I'm not surprised that it kind of ended up there, but was that something that was like brewing in your head at the time? And did someone kind of, share that with you or tell you, or did you learn it from somewhere?
Yeah. It's interesting because I had a couple mentors because there weren't a lot of women that were in my industry that were up at that high level of owning something or running something. And so I had some great male mentors that, supported and believed in me and encouraged me and that type of thing. But you're absolutely right. You have to, what I found, I have to start putting a team together. And then that's scary in itself because in fitness, I had, and this happened to me with that Pilates studio. I had brought on a couple people. Well, they ended up opening up a studio and taking half my members. So now I had some hard knocks. So now I'm with half the members, have to rebuild. I did rebuild, but it was just like, wow, this is hard. How do you do this? Because it can't be all about me. I have to get other people working with me and on board. And how do you do that? And they, go off and take your business. It was a big learning experience for me. And I probably, of course, the biggest thing was when I partnered with my guys with Orangetheory of really understanding the importance of in partnership of each of you having the strength in your own lane. So for example, So as the story goes, just to continue with it, with the Pilates studio, I ended up, my members weren't happy with metabolic work. They were spinning, they were jogging around the park, and because Pilates, there's no fat burning work. So they were like, can't you come up with something? So that's when I went and moved over to a bigger space, and I created the room that was the foundation of Orangetheory Fitness. And when that started taking off, I met with Jerome and Dave. Their wife, Jerome's wife, was a member at my facility. And right out of the gate, I think the three of us didn't even realize this, but now going 13 years later and having this mega successful brand, it really was that the three of us have mega strengths. So I consider myself like the artist, right? I was the creative force on the workout. And then Dave Long is a master CEO manager. He manages the business. And then Jerome is a pure, authentic, unbelievable entrepreneur. And his whole focus is, how can we put up 10 more? How can we put up 10 more? So when you had each one of us in our lanes with these mega strengths, that I think really helped propel us forward, because we always got along because we respected each other's mega strengths, superpowers, and others, franchisees, as they came in, respected, wow, she really knows her fitness. Wow, he knows, franchising. So I don't know. It's very interesting looking at it all.
Ellen, so I definitely, and we want to focus on Orangetheory, but I want to also just take a step back real quick, because I think that a lot of our listeners are probably going to ask similar questions to what I would ask about that moment in time that you're this 40-year-old single mother. And Pat and I are 30 now, and when we were 10, 40 years old, seemed like a lot older than it does now. But you talk about your mindset, right? Of almost instantly you were able to shift from like there's no income to I need to figure it out. And I think that moment of I don't want to call it desperation, but it was almost a necessity for you to make money, allowed you that urgency, right?
Absolutely.
To do something. I think a lot of people, whether they're our age at 30, whether they're 20, whether they're 40, whether they're 60, they lack that urgency, even though they want to quote unquote be entrepreneurs. What would be your advice to those that maybe aren't in a place of urgency, that don't need to make money perhaps, or to do or be an entrepreneur? How do they shift their mindset?
Yeah, I think you have to be relentless. That is the word that I use all the time, is you have to. I know at that time, it was like I just was going to eliminate distractions. I had my son, and I was just going to, other distractions couldn't, because then my mind could not 1000% go there. And I think because of that, it allowed me to, move forward. I had moments that my father reminded me about my gift, which basically is my purpose in life. Your purpose is your contribution in life. So if you sit in your space of like, what am I really supposed to be doing? Who I am? It's what you want your contribution to be. That's the definition of purpose. And he was very purposeful and was like reminding me of that. And I knew it had to be fitness. So I wasn't going to go find a job because, I had to pay the rent and this and that. I was going to find a way in my field of fitness to do this. So that relentless, eliminate distractions, just really think about you and your purpose and what you really want and what you want your contribution to be, and then go out there after it. I think that it's very important to get up in your head certain words, because you see, words create actions and actions create an attitude. I talk about this all the time with my coaches. The words you use as you're coaching your classes, the words you use that you're talking to yourself in your head, they're going to create actions. So now my actions, or my words were, okay, Ellen, let's go. You've got this. Go figure out a way. Do Pilates. Okay, you got a spare room in your house. Okay, you're spinning. I was teaching like 8 classes a day at my little spinning concession. Get those women to come over and do Pilates with you. It was like the words that kept telling me how to do it created action. All of a sudden, I had all these women coming to my house. The action occurred. Words create action, which then creates an attitude. An attitude's like a yawn. It's contagious. So all of a sudden, it was contagious not only in me, but in others, where it was like, wow, she's like powerful. Look at her. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So speaking of, and so kind of shifting, I guess, like in between that time when you're teaching Pilates, you have the studio, and then obviously Orange Theory, there's this thing that you created, which is the ultimate workout. And that, I think it seems like, served as the foundation for Orange Theory. And that was like the innovative concept at the time that, didn't exist. Like you didn't just, create another workout. I mean, it was like, it's a very unique thing. And there's this thing about innovation, I think, in entrepreneurship, is like unlocking secrets, right? Like, what do you come across that maybe other people don't, right? And that kind of becomes like that novel thing that really propels you forward and like jumpstarts your business, right? Because you create this thing, and then somehow, some way, maybe it leads to a business, right? And so speaking of that time, like when you're perhaps moving from the room to the studio and, hearing like what is not out there from your clients in terms of they're missing something in the market, they need something that's a little bit, I don't know, better for them in terms of a metabolic workout or whatever it is. How did you, I know you had a background in it, you had studied it, how did you come up with this new concept that didn't exist, and why didn't it exist?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it was, so one time a very successful entrepreneur said to me, you know what you did that's different than a lot of entrepreneurs do? They're sitting around a conference table, and trying to figure out the next big thing. You did the opposite. You sat there and just created what exactly your members wanted. They wanted a 1 hour metabolic workout. You knew that what they liked from you teaching group fitness and Pilates. So I needed it to move. I needed it to be something that had a pace to it. I knew that I had to do heart rate based work to get that oxygen debt. When you talk about metabolic work, you want to create an oxygen debt in the person, and then your body has to repay that oxygen debt. It's like money in the bank. You spent money in the bank. You got to go work harder to go put the money back in the bank. Your body works the same way. So I knew that interval training was definitely the way to take a short period of that hour and be able to hit what I needed to do. All I need is 12 to 20 minutes where that heart rate's over 82%. That's all I need. Then I knew I needed some muscle work in there. I had, in those days in the YMCA, been doing what was called more absolute muscle work. That's that heavy lifting, how much can I bench press, this type of thing. That was not what these women wanted. I was doing Pilates with them. So I had to figure out functional and usable strength. That's what we do at Orange Theory. It's called functional and usable. It's you able to get up and down off the ground quickly, this and that. Your muscles are very functioning and fit. So that floor work and the dumbbells I have in there and the med balls and the TRX straps were creating that kind of work. And then I was very familiar with this thing called power. It's kind of like putting lighter fluid on your workout. So for example, CrossFit uses explosive jumps on boxes for power. Well, I knew my knees weren't going to be interested in that. So I found these very dusty machines in the corner of gyms called rowers that not a person was using back in that day in 2008. And I said, it would be great for non-impact power. So these were the physiological aspects I wanted to put in the workout. Listen, I didn't know if this was going to work. I opened up the walls. I opened up the door. I bought all the equipment. Right. I borrowed money, and I had never taught one class in that room. That's crazy.
See, you didn't know it was going to work, but you knew the science behind it. Yes. I'm just curious, since then, obviously, high intensity interval training, EPOC, these are all things that we hear about now. But at the time, people were probably just going to gyms, like you said, trying to, max out as much weight as they could, but there wasn't really much science behind it. And I'm curious why. Like, was there some sort of discovery at the time? Like, was it like, why wasn't it not a business at the time?
My thinking and my brain was, I wanted something different. I didn't want, just to put in a boxing, spinning, whatever type of thing that was out there. And I really did just base it on what I knew physiologically as an exercise physiologist, things that back in the spa days, I would recommend to those stars. I'd write programs for Linda Evans and go, now go home and you're going to do 2 minutes on the treadmill at a nice base pace. Then you're going to pick it up for a minute as hard as you can. Then you're going to back off. I mean, I was doing this way back then. It just kind of came together, and that I mixed it all up in a bowl and said, I think that, no, I know the science is going to work. Now I just have to hope enough people will come and try it and give it a shot in their body for at least enough time to start to see the results.
This episode is brought to you by Axiom Print, based in the greater LA area. Printing is essential to every business's success and crucial for marketing and building your brand. There are over 200 products available on their website for convenient online ordering, and custom requests are always welcome through one of Axiom's dedicated account managers. You can upload your design, choose your options, and make payment all from the comfort of your computer or even on the go using your phone 24 hours per day. And if you're not sure how to design your material, no problem. Their team of experienced designers will work with you to create professional and eye-catching designs that effectively market your brand. So if you're looking for a reliable and affordable printing partner, look no further than Axiom Print. Check them out at axiomprint.com and be sure to use the promo code TheFounderHour to get 15% off your first order, or share the promo code with your dedicated Axiom Print account manager. All right, let's get back into the show.
So when did Orangetheory, when was it born? Like the name, the brand. Talk to us about the early days of the actual business.
So I created Ellen's in 2008, and Orangetheory was born in 2010. So my partners came over, they took a class, we sat down, they loved it, thought that this was something, said, let's put up a pilot studio in downtown Fort Lauderdale and let's give it a shot. And the three of us went and got some little office space, and we sat down to create a franchise. It's crazy when we sit back and think of the three of us looking at each other, kind of going, okay, so we need to develop training manuals. We need to do this. And I didn't know how to do that.
So the goal from day one was to become a franchise business.
Yes. Correct. So my partners were involved in the Massage Envy world. So Jerome was owned several Massage Envies. Dave worked in the corporate office of Massage Envy. Then they got together and said, let's try to find something to franchise ourselves. There's a chance that they, decided to take. And let's see, we see what is happening. Your end of it. That's Dave, like I said, the manager, CEO, and Jerome, who is putting a bunch of Massage Envies up left and right, and said, let's just find that thing. And they were just about to sign on a Pilates franchise a few weeks before they met me, and we sat down, and they just felt energetically I was the way to go.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm glad.
And at this point, did you have to go and get outside capital to build this first studio and then eventually the franchises, or was the idea to partner up with franchisees? Franchisees that would put up their own capital to build these out.
Yeah. So we the three of us put in money to open up their first pilot studio. And then the whole franchise model, and this is how, was explained to me early on, is that we find ARs, area reps, and then we sell an area to them. So basically they, finance that area, but then they get a percentage of the royalties. So we don't get the full royalty. They get a percentage, we get a percentage, and then they're responsible for putting up some studios and building out the area. That model is really the brilliant model of expanding, because they become partners with us.
Mm-hmm. And so I know I kind of mentioned it earlier about how now a lot of these concepts are a little bit more common knowledge than it was back then. And for that reason, I'm sure you've seen many competitors pop out, whether they're boot camps or this or that. I'm not saying they're direct competitors, because I know the competition is probably not doing it at all. But there's so many of these other concepts. And what would you say is the moat that Orangetheory built early on that has allowed it to sustain itself and be a market leader in this space?
Yeah, it's definitely heart rate training. I mean, just recently we did our own max heart rate algorithm where our members can come in and it actually adjusts your max heart rate. I used to test people for max heart rate on a bike for ages, one-on-one. So this brilliance of where we're at, in heart rate training. And, I don't know if the world knows this, but I'm going to announce it right now. The number one contribution to what your mortality will be is VO2 max, the volume of oxygen your body can take in. That's why when you go to the doctor's office, they do a max test on the treadmill. See, they're checking your breathing. That is the number one judgment or mortality in people. My goodness, we're basically saying to you, you want to be able to take volumes of oxygen in on a regular basis, and we probably can give you a few more years on at the end. So I don't know if that's all understood by people. All I know is when they're taking the workout, they feel better. They've got more energy. They feel younger. They're moving better. There's all these things that make them go, I think I'm going to come back. People aren't coming back to Orangetheory because our walls are orange. It's a lovely color, but that's not why they're coming back. They're coming back because it works. They're getting unbelievable results in all ages. Another thing that I didn't really like about group training is it really was for the elite fitness. It really wasn't for the overweight, the woman who was a bit deconditioned. She never came into my step class. She looked in through the glass on the outside of the studio. Well, I really wanted to make it so that everyone could come in. So we have a walker category, a jogger category, a runner category. We have all kinds of options they can take. So our oldest member is 95 years old in Colorado. We have all kinds of people taking the workout. It's heart rate based, huge results.
So Ellen, my wife has been, I think, going to Orangetheory for, since 2017, so 6 years or so. And I mean, that's like the only thing that she's, besides being married to me for 2.5 years and dating me for 5, that's the most consistent thing I think she's done. So I'm on the right track. So we just got to keep going. But she always talks about how, in a positive way, that Orangetheory feels a lot like a tech company that just so happens to, do fitness versus like a group class fitness company. With, I think you guys have that whole monitoring system. Yep. That you guys display. Was that something that was done early on as a part of kind of the core business of what Orangetheory is? Did that develop over time? Talk to us a little bit about that. And perhaps if her feeling of this is a tech company type thing is correct.
Yeah. Absolutely. We like to call ourselves high touch, high tech. I always say what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. So we have to be measuring things in fitness. Now, at my studio, we didn't have heart rate monitoring. I did more perceived exertion, and push. You're very uncomfortable. You're challenging, but doable, and base, these types of things. When we started the company about a year in, we sat down and the conversation started going around. What if we were able to actually monitor people's heart rate? No one was doing this. Absolutely no one in group fitness. And it was challenging because we had to charge all the monitors overnight. And it was like a nightmare in the beginning. And that's why eventually we went into our own. We have our own heart rate monitors now that we, have created and we distribute in the studios. But what's so great about this is someone like your wife who would like to know, gee, I did a 1 mile jog benchmark yesterday, and I shaved off 15 seconds from what I did 2 months ago. Okay, that means your heart muscle's stronger. It's shooting out higher volumes of blood in less time. These are things that you can really sit there and go, I'm measuring this, I'm improving, I'm better. So, our OT Connect on our rowers and treadmills give you all kinds of information. And a lot of people really, want that kind of tech information today. It's finding that fine line of not too much, but just enough. Right. And that's what we really want to make sure we do.
Yeah, I think that's extremely fascinating that you guys introduced that tech aspect of it, because now we've seen some consumer facing tech when it comes to like monitoring your heart rate and things like that, like the bands or like the rings or stuff people wear. But you did this kind of in this like, like this workout environment. And I'm just curious, as a company who is very focused on tech, like where do you see that all going for Orangetheory? I mean, do you see it eventually branching out of Orangetheory just direct to consumer? Or is it something that like is there more like innovation to come when it comes to the tech aspect of it?
Look, we're always looking at our members. We just don't want to create things for the fact of let's just create more tech and more fancy stuff. We're looking at it. What do our members really want? What interests them? Kind of way back when I created the workout. That kind of mentality continues 13 years later. So that's what will drive our technology of what's really important to your wife, wanting to know, am I improving from doing all these intervals, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So, that's where we're going on that. As far as, branching out, I think our lane of this kind of chairs of fitness, we call it. Remember the chairs, the bar where, your wife probably comes in. She probably knows a lot of the members, the staff. She's probably developed some nice relationships and friendships. This is also something that we really find so important that's lacking today, right? Because technology takes you away from all of that chit chat and all of that great stuff that we used to have way, way back. So our studio concept is something we are not looking to, go far from because it works.
Yeah. So, it's obviously crazy impressive that the last I read it, these numbers might be higher at this point, but that you guys were at 1,500 plus locations in 25 plus countries. And that's in a less than a decade and a half, which is, I don't know the math, like 1,000 locations per.
Yeah, I think I saw like
100 locations
2016, you opened a location every day or something like that, which is insane.
Yeah, which is nuts. I mean, so I guess a couple of questions. One, you talk about when you began this, that your purpose and your drive were what got you to do it. The first question is, did you feel like the franchising model was going to take away a bit of that away from you?
Look, I think that what was so important to us and what I'm very proud about our company is we put a lot of effort and money into taking care of our franchisees. They're our partners. We look at them as our partners. They're the boots on the ground. Okay. They're out there, with your wife, with the members, the franchisee. He's taking care of his employees, making sure that they're heard and seen and all of that. So, it's something that I think that, is so important that we never lose. And I don't think we will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess the second question that I have regarding that was, when did you realize wow, we have made so much money and obviously have made such a great impact. And I could have never imagined that, that was going to happen when we first began.
Yeah, I personally, I guess I didn't think about that so much because, listen, I've been doing this 50 years this year. I've been in the fitness industry, 50. And I'm as passionate today as I was when I was putting those straps around those women in the YWCA. So I was so excited to have this huge platform of million members that I could affect, regarding fitness and making them better physically. I was so excited about that when I just had a small class that I would do that with. So listen, is that wonderful? It's absolutely wonderful. Probably more thrilled about all of the franchisees and the area reps who believed in us in the beginning. And they've done incredibly well in this business because they wanted to be partners with us. So that makes me very proud and excited.
Yeah. A few years ago, we all know what happened. The pandemic, things changed, and especially the fitness industry got hit pretty badly. I know my gym was closed for months, and I was really upset. But I think it was Catherine, your nurse's wife, who said how quickly Orangetheory was able to kind of adjust to things. And so I'm just kind of curious, at the time, how did you? What was your immediate reaction, and how are you able to really kind of shift gears and maintain operations?
Yeah, pivot fast. It was, we went to virtual. We had no idea the virtual world. And this where Dave was brilliant and really making that shift so that we could offer for those who, wished it, some virtual level of fitness. It was very tough. You have 1,500 studios closing the door. What was going on in different parts of the world. We have studios in all over the world. It was, a devastating time all the way around. I'm so proud of our franchisees who really worked hard to, maintain maybe a key staff or, do what they had to do to bring them back when we were coming back. And they really, proved to, fear that, to go through this storm, and it was a mega storm, as best as we could. And the fitness industry was hit very, very hard. You're absolutely right. We were looked at as, a place that, was not of necessity. We were trying to, appeal to the government and with other types of fitness, businesses out there that people need this. Yep. They really do. So we're glad we're back. We're definitely doing, so well. And it definitely has to do with the many franchisees, many employees and members like your wife who, came back and supported their studio and said, let's get going. We're back.
I think it goes to show kind of the power also of a franchise business, because I think the one in our area, moved from inside to like outside in like a parking lot or whatever they could find, and continued there. And I think having like the franchise model is interesting because you have like all these kind of part owners in the business who are like all hands on deck trying to figure out a solution instead of, obviously like a private company that's not franchised. It's like kind of the people at the top, and then everyone's kind of just following, their orders in a way. So I think from that perspective, it's really cool.
You're absolutely right. Our franchisees are definitely our partners, and we have some brilliant business individuals out there, men and women, who are running our studios.
How has your role changed over the last 13 years as, the creator and founder of Orangetheory?
Well, I don't go out and train like I did in the early days. I'm still involved with the template design, which we have a, brilliant group of exercise fitness specialists who design the workouts that are sent to all the studios. So all the studios are doing the same workout every day. So I'm still involved with that group, just kind of, sticking my head in on what's going on with that. I'm involved at the corporate office of just, keeping those employees and, definitely sticking my head in and being a part of any support that's needed on my end. Whenever they need me to go somewhere to do something to support a region, I'm there. I just love it. I love this brand. I love the people in it. I love what it's doing for the world. So it's going to be hard for them to throw me out of this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you obviously have like your dad as an example of a coach. I mean, you have your inner coach. When do you, quote unquote, I don't want to use the word retire, but like, what's like the next step for you as the company continues to grow? And obviously the folks below you, I know we talk about succession planning with some of these founders that we've had on, how does that look like, from a creative aspect? Because the business is different. I think people can come and run a business, but how do you plan your kind of like the creatives that come after you?
Yeah, look, I hope, like I say, to be involved for, as long as, possible. I am now doing a lot of keynote speaking. So that's kind of shifted my, kind of career. And so I'm brought on by companies to do a keynote on kind of, the direct trajectory of me and Orangetheory. So, and I really enjoy that. And so, yeah, it's definitely, shifted a little. But however, where we go, we're right now in rebuild. So, post-COVID. So there's, involvement on my end in that rebuild process.
Yeah. Well, Ellen, this has been a fantastic conversation. Just hearing where kind of this all started from and the mentality and the mindset that you had, obviously that you got from your father, is super inspiring because, there's so many people in positions, whether they're currently working somewhere and they're not happy or they're just trying to figure it out. And, oftentimes we're kind of, I think, wired to think that we need to look like outside and, outside of our immediate kind of thing of like, these are the things that I'm good at. And it's very doable versus kind of comparing yourself to others or what have you. And you did that. Like, you looked inward and you figured out what you had a passion for, and I can feel the passion when you're speaking, and obviously it keeps you young and energized, and I'm sure that you're going to be involved for many, many years to come. And we can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing your story.
Oh, it was a thrill. And, I like to remind people, I partnered with my partners at age 54. So it is never too late to make a shift or say to yourself, you know what, this is what I'm going to go after and do. Never too late. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Ellen.